Manchester United transfer news. The Hugo Ekitike battle and Marcus Rashford speculation. Introduction. The summer transfer window is heating up, and Manchester United fans are in for a wild ride. Two major stories are dominating the headlines right now, and both could shape the Red Devils' future in very different ways. On one side, we have United jumping into a fierce battle with Newcastle to sign one of Europe's hottest young strikers. On the other, there's talk of one of their own stars potentially making a shocking move to their biggest rivals. Sound dramatic? That's because it is. Welcome to the crazy world of football transfers, where million-pound deals can change overnight and loyalty means less than ever before. Today we're diving deep into the Hugo Ekitike transfer saga and the surprising Marcus Rashford speculation that has everyone talking. The Hugo Ekitike transfer battle, United versus Newcastle. Who is Hugo Ekitike? If you haven't heard of Hugo Ekitike yet, you're about to. The 23-year-old French striker has been lighting up the Bundesliga with Eintracht Frankfurt, and now every major club in Europe wants him. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches tall, Ekitike is the kind of striker that modern football craves. He's got the height to win headers, the pace to run in behind defenses, and most importantly, he knows where the back of the net is. His performances this season have been nothing short of spectacular, turning him into one of the most wanted players in world football. But here's what makes the story even more interesting. Ekitike represents France at the under-21 level, which means he's still developing and has his best years ahead of him. For any club looking to build for the future, he's exactly the kind of player you want to get your hands on. Newcastle's bold move. Newcastle United thought they had this one in the bag. The Magpies have been working hard behind the scenes, and it looked like they were about to pull off the signing of the summer. They even sent a delegation to Germany to finalize what would have been a club record transfer. Their approach seemed professional and well-planned. Both David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano, two of the most reliable voices in football transfers, confirmed that a deal was being worked on. Newcastle fans were already dreaming of seeing Ekitike partnering with Alexander Isak up front. Can you imagine that attacking partnership? Isak's creativity and movement combined with Ekitike's physical presence and finishing ability? It would have been scary for Premier League defenses. But then came the bombshell. Newcastle's opening offer of £70 million, their biggest bid ever, was rejected by Frankfurt. Just like that, what seemed like a done deal became a transfer battle. Why did Frankfurt reject the offer? Frankfurt's decision to reject Newcastle's bid wasn't random. They have a clear valuation for their star striker, and they're sticking to it. The German club wants around €100 million for Ekitike, which is about £86.7 million. That's a massive amount of money, but Frankfurt believes they have every right to demand it. Ekitike had an excellent season. He's young, and he's proven he can perform at the highest level. In today's inflated transfer market, that price tag might actually be reasonable for a player of his quality. Frankfurt also knows they have the upper hand. Multiple clubs want Ekitike, which means they can afford to be patient and wait for the right offer. They don't need to sell him cheap just because one club made a bid. Manchester United enter the race. Just when Newcastle thought they could regroup and make a better offer, Manchester United threw their hat into the ring. The Red Devils have made what's being called a serious bid to hijack the transfer. This is where things get really interesting. United have reportedly made contact with Ekitike's agents, which suggests they're not just testing the waters. They're genuinely interested in making this happen. What makes United's approach particularly clever is that they're reportedly considering a player plus cash deal. This could help them speed up the transfer process while also reducing the actual cash they need to pay up front. It's a smart strategy that could give them an advantage over Newcastle. The involvement of INEOS, United's new owners, adds another layer to this story. They clearly have the financial muscle to compete with anyone, and they're not afraid to make big moves in the transfer market. The impact on Newcastle. For Newcastle, this development must be incredibly frustrating. They did all the groundwork, they made the first serious move, and now they're facing competition from one of the biggest clubs in the world. Eddie Howe, Newcastle's manager, must be feeling the pressure. He's been promised investment in the squad, and losing out on their top target would be a major setback. The club's fans were already getting excited about the possibility of signing Ekitike, and now that dream might be slipping away. But Newcastle won't give up easily. They have their own advantages in this race. They can offer Ekitike regular first-team football, they're building an exciting project, and they have the financial backing to compete with anyone. The question is, will they be willing to match Frankfurt's asking price? And even if they do, will that be enough to beat United's offer? What this means for the transfer market. The Ekitike situation shows us something important about today's transfer market. No deal is done until it's officially announced. Even when everything seems to be going smoothly, another club can come in and change everything. This kind of last-minute competition is becoming more common. Clubs are willing to wait until the very end before making their moves, hoping to catch their rivals off guard. It makes for exciting drama, but it also makes the transfer window incredibly unpredictable. For fans, it's both thrilling and nerve-wracking. You never know if your club's dream signing is actually going to happen until you see them holding up the shirt. Marcus Rashford, the shock Liverpool connection, the unexpected twist. If the Ekitike story wasn't dramatic enough, there's another transfer tale that's even more surprising. Marcus Rashford, Manchester United's homegrown star, is reportedly being considered by Liverpool. Yes, you read that right. Liverpool, United's biggest rivals, are apparently looking at the possibility of signing Rashford. It's the kind of story that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. But here we are. The very idea of Rashford in a Liverpool shirt is enough to make United fans feel sick. But before we get too carried away, let's look at what's actually happening here. Rashford's fall from grace. To understand why this story even exists, we need to look at what's happened to Rashford over the past year. The 26-year-old forward, who was once seen as United's future, has fallen out of favor at Old Trafford. Last season was particularly difficult for Rashford. He struggled for form, lost his place in the starting 11, and was eventually loaned out to Aston Villa in the second half of the season. For a player who came through United's academy and was supposed to be a key part of their future, it was a dramatic fall. The relationship between Rashford and manager Erik Ten Hag appears to be broken beyond repair. Ten Hag doesn't seem to rate Rashford, and the player himself is reportedly pushing for a move away from Old Trafford. It's a sad situation for everyone involved. Rashford has been at United since he was a child, and seeing him want to leave must be heartbreaking for the club's fans. But sometimes these things happen in football, and it might be best for everyone if he finds a new challenge. Why would Liverpool be interested? On the surface, Liverpool's interest in Rashford might seem strange. Why would they want a player who's been struggling at their biggest rival? But when you think about it more deeply, it actually makes some sense. First, Liverpool know that Rashford is a talented player. His struggles at United don't erase the fact that he's scored goals at the highest level and has been capped by England many times. Sometimes a change of scenery is all a player needs to rediscover their best form. Second, Liverpool are looking for attacking reinforcements. They've already signed Florian Wirtz and Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen, but they're still searching for a new striker. Rashford, despite his recent struggles, has proven he can score goals in the Premier League. Third, there's the psychological aspect. Signing a player from your biggest rival sends a message. It shows that you're not afraid to make controversial moves, and it can be a way of weakening your opponent while strengthening yourself. The Barcelona dream. But here's where this story gets even more complicated. While Liverpool might be interested in Rashford, the player himself apparently has other ideas. Reports suggest that Barcelona is his preferred destination, and he's willing to wait as long as necessary to make that move happen. This creates an interesting situation. Liverpool might be willing to offer Rashford a way out of United, but if he's not interested in joining them, then the whole thing becomes pointless. Barcelona's interest in Rashford isn't surprising. The Spanish giants have a history of signing big-name players from the Premier League, and they're always looking for ways to strengthen their squad. For Rashford, a move to Barcelona would represent a fresh start in a new league, away from all the drama and pressure he's faced in England. Liverpool's other targets. Even if the Rashford story doesn't develop into anything concrete, it shows that Liverpool are serious about strengthening their attack. They've been linked with several other strikers, including some very impressive names. At the top of their wish list is Alexander Isak from Newcastle. The Swedish striker has been brilliant since joining the Magpies, and he would be a perfect fit for Liverpool's style of play. However, Newcastle are determined to keep him, and they've made it clear that he's not for sale. Liverpool have also made inquiries about Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa, Jon Wissa from Brentford, and Victor Osimhen from Napoli. Interestingly, they're also interested in Hugo Ekitike, which means they could end up competing with United for his signature too. This shows that Liverpool's new manager, Arne Slot, is being backed in the transfer market. The club is clearly willing to spend money to give him the players he needs to succeed. The United perspective. From United's point of view, losing Rashford to Liverpool would be a nightmare scenario. It's bad enough that one of their academy graduates wants to leave, but seeing him join their biggest rivals would be incredibly painful. However, United might not have much choice in the matter. If Rashford is determined to leave and Liverpool are willing to pay a good fee, it might be the best solution for everyone involved. The key question is whether United would actually be willing to sell to Liverpool. In the past, the two clubs have rarely done business with each other, precisely because of their rivalry. But football is becoming more and more about business, and if the price is right, anything is possible. The fan reaction. The reaction from fans to this story has been predictably explosive. United fans are horrified at the thought of Rashford joining Liverpool, while Liverpool fans are divided between excitement at the possibility of signing a proven Premier League player and concern about whether he's the right fit for their club. Social media has been full of debates about whether this move would make sense for either club. Some people think it would be a masterstroke by Liverpool, while others believe it would be a huge mistake. The truth is, we won't know how this story develops until we see some concrete action. Right now, it's all speculation and rumors, but that's what makes the transfer window so exciting. The bigger picture. What this means for Manchester United. Transfer strategy under new ownership. Both of these stories tell us something important about Manchester United's transfer strategy under their new ownership. The club is clearly willing to spend big money on the right players, as shown by their interest in Ekitike. But they're also being smart about it, considering player plus cash deals and looking for ways to speed up the process. At the same time, they're not afraid to make tough decisions about existing players. The Rashford situation shows that sentiment doesn't always win out over what's best for the team. If a player isn't fitting into the manager's plans, the club is willing to let them go, even if it means selling to a rival. This kind of ruthless approach might be exactly what United needs. For too long, they've been sentimental about players who weren't performing, keeping them around for longer than they should have. The new ownership seems determined to change that. The importance of getting these deals right. The outcome of these two transfer stories could have a huge impact on United's season. If they can sign Ekitike, they'll have added a young, talented striker who could score goals for years to come. If they can't, they might struggle to find another player of similar quality. Similarly, if they can sell Rashford for a good fee, they'll have money to spend on other players and wages freed up for new signings. If they can't, they'll be stuck with an unhappy player who doesn't want to be there. Getting these deals right is crucial for United's chances of competing with Manchester City, Arsenal, and Liverpool next season. The margin for error at the top of the Premier League is so small that one or two bad transfer decisions can make the difference between success and failure. Competition in the transfer market. What both stories also show is how competitive the transfer market has become. United are no longer the only big spenders in the Premier League, and they're facing serious competition for every target. Newcastle's emergence as a major force in the transfer market has changed the dynamics completely. They have money to spend and they're not afraid to use it. Liverpool, meanwhile, continue to be smart operators who can identify and sign good players. This increased competition is good for football overall, but it makes life more difficult for United. They can't assume that their name and history will be enough to attract the best players. They need to be smarter, faster, and more creative in their approach. The role of player power. Both stories also highlight the increasing power that players have in the modern game. Ekitike can essentially choose where he wants to go, while Rashford is pushing for a move away from his boyhood club. This shift in power has made the transfer market more unpredictable and more exciting. Players are no longer passive participants in their own transfers. They're actively involved in shaping their careers and choosing their destinations. For clubs like United, this means they need to be more persuasive and more attractive as destinations. It's not enough to just make a good offer. They need to convince players that joining them is the right move for their career. The financial implications. The cost of modern transfers. The Ekitike story shows us just how expensive the transfer market has become. Frankfurt's asking price of €100 million for a 23-year-old striker would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Now, it's becoming the norm for the very best players. This inflation in transfer fees is driven by several factors. TV money has increased dramatically, meaning clubs have more money to spend. The competition for the best players has intensified, driving up prices. And the length of contracts has increased, meaning clubs need to pay more to prize players away from their current teams. For United, this means they need to be very careful about which players they choose to pursue. Spending €100 million on one player represents a huge investment that needs to pay off both on and off the pitch. The Rashford sale. If United do decide to sell Rashford, the fee they receive could be very significant. Despite his struggles last season, he's still a proven Premier League player with England caps to his name. In today's market, that's worth a lot of money. The exact fee would depend on several factors, including which club he joins, how desperate United are to sell him, and how much time is left on his contract. But it's reasonable to expect that they could receive £50 to £60 million for him, which would give them significant funds to spend on other players. This is particularly important given the Premier League's financial fair play rules. Clubs need to balance their spending with their income, and selling players is one of the main ways to generate the funds needed for new signings. The wage bill impact. Both transfers would have a significant impact on United's wage bill. Signing Ekitike would mean adding another high earner to the squad, while selling Rashford would free up a considerable amount in wages. Managing the wage bill is becoming increasingly important for all Premier League clubs. The rules around financial fair play are getting stricter, and clubs need to be more careful about how much they spend on player salaries. For United, finding the right balance between investing in quality players and staying within the financial rules is a constant challenge. The decisions they make this summer will have implications for their transfer activity for years to come. Looking ahead, what happens next? The Ekitike decision. The Hugo Ekitike transfer saga is far from over. Frankfurt have rejected Newcastle's opening bid, and United have entered the race. Now we're likely to see a period of intense negotiation as both clubs try to find a way to meet Frankfurt's asking price. The key questions are, how badly do United want Ekitike? Are they willing to pay €100 million for him? And can they structure a deal that Frankfurt will accept? Given United's need for a striker and their financial resources, it's quite possible that they'll end up being the winning bidder. But Newcastle won't give up easily, and they have their own advantages in this race. One thing is certain. This story will dominate the headlines for the next few weeks, and football fans around the world will be watching closely to see how it develops. The Rashford situation. The Marcus Rashford story is likely to develop more slowly. Liverpool's interest seems to be exploratory at this stage, and the player himself apparently prefers a move to Barcelona. However, these situations can change quickly. If Barcelona can't afford to sign Rashford, or if Liverpool make him an offer he can't refuse, we could see this story gather momentum very quickly. From United's perspective, they'll want to resolve the Rashford situation as quickly as possible. Having an unhappy player in the squad is never ideal, and they'll want to know whether they need to plan for next season with or without him. The impact on team building. Both of these transfers will have a significant impact on how United build their squad for next season. If they sign Ekitike, they'll have addressed their striker problem and can focus on other areas of the team. If they don't, they'll need to find alternative targets, which could be difficult given how few quality strikers are available. Similarly, if they sell Rashford, they'll need to find a replacement, which could mean signing 2 attacking players instead of 1. This would require careful planning and significant investment. The next few weeks will be crucial for United's transfer strategy. The decisions they make now will shape their squad for the entire season. Conclusion. A summer of change. As we've seen from these 2 fascinating transfer stories, This summer promises to be one of significant change for Manchester United. The club is clearly willing to make big moves in the transfer market, both in terms of players coming in and players going out. The Hugo Ekitike saga shows that United are ready to compete with anyone for the best young talent in Europe. They're not afraid to hijack deals, and they have the financial resources to make it happen. Whether they can convince Frankfurt to sell and persuade Ekitike to choose Old Trafford over St James Park remains to be seen. But their entry into the race has certainly made things more interesting. The Marcus Rashford speculation, meanwhile, shows that no player is unsellable in modern football. Even a homegrown hero who came through the academy can find himself on the transfer list if things don't work out. The possibility of him joining Liverpool would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. But in today's football world, anything is possible. What do you think about these transfer stories? Should United go all out for Ekitike? Or are there better value options available? And would you be shocked to see Rashford in a Liverpool shirt? Or do you think it's time for him to move on? These are the questions that will define United's summer and potentially their entire season. The transfer window is far from over, and if these stories are anything to go by, we're in for a wild ride. One thing is certain: football fans around the world will be watching closely to see how these stories develop. In the modern game, the transfer window has become entertainment in its own right, and stories like these are exactly why we love it. The next few weeks will tell us a lot about United's ambitions, their transfer strategy, and their ability to compete with the best clubs in Europe. For United fans, it's an exciting time to be alive. The club is clearly not standing still, and they're making moves that could transform their fortunes. So buckle up, United fans. This summer is going to be one to remember, and these two transfer stories are just the beginning. The beautiful game never stops surprising us, and that's exactly how we like it.